I'm going to offer a question to one side or the other. They'll have 2 minutes to answer it in any way they want amongst the three of them. And then the other three can then answer the same question, pointing out some deficiencies or lack of logic, perhaps, in their opponent's argument. The first question goes to the group on the left, and it is this, and it's about land. Remember, we talked. Let's segregate what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about land, shore, oceans, and the oil sands. First of all, land. There has been a pipeline in since 1952. This would be a twinned pipeline, albeit a bigger one of 30 inches. But what's wrong with that? We've got a choice if we have to move it down here, all this material down here. One throughput per day in that pipeline would equal 1,400 tanker trucks if we were to move it. The pipeline seems to be a very benign way of moving this material. Your answer, 2 minutes.
Relative to other means of transporting bitumen or heavy oil or light oil, the pipeline is somewhat benign. And I think there's definitely a bigger context for this question, but I'll go straight to your question, which is this the safest? And I would say at this point in time, given that we are seeing the singularly most significant rewrite of environmental law in Canada in the 20 years that I've been a lawyer in Canada, and we are seeing the federal government abdicate its responsibility for environmental protection in so many ways, I think the question has to also be, is this the safest? It's safe if we think it's regulated. It's safe if we know that it's being overseen. It's safe if we know that measures are being taken. And at this time, most of the safeguards that organizations like mine have relied upon to know that the environment is being protected are actually being pulled out from under us. The federal government has rewritten the Fisheries Act quite significantly to extremely narrow its application. And you know, this pipeline does cross many rivers and streams in BC. The federal government has also, when it comes to approving these projects, the federal government has removed the decision-making authority of its independent regulator, the National Energy Board, so that whereas the National Energy Board used to approve or say no to projects like this, the National Energy Board can now only make recommendations, and decisions about major infrastructure projects like this will be in the hands of Cabinet. So that's just my 2 cents. Let me check with my, we're just getting warmed up here, guys. So
You got 30 seconds to get hotter.
30 seconds.
I think when we start talking about safety on land, then we need to look at the what's happened even just in the last 2 years. We've seen 3 devastating oil spills in Alberta that we're still trying to figure out how to clean up. 2 years after the Kalamazoo spill in Michigan, that community is still trying to clean that up. And I think the fact is that we need to remember that bitumen is an incredibly corrosive substance. It's not a matter of when leaks and spills if leaks and spills will happen. It's a matter of when. And I think we can see that from what's happening throughout Alberta in those pipelines and also in the United States.
Okay, panel on the right, your answer to that question. Considering the Kalamazoo 840,000 gallon spill, the reported 30 incidents of explosions in KM pipelines, is this the safest way to move this stuff?
Sorry. Need a little more cord there. Wait.
Nobody moves.
Still working?
We're already having action.
All right.
But it came from the center, so nobody's to blame.
We should have had Kinder Morgan lay out the cords. We would have had some tape on them. So is pipeline transportation safe? I agree with what the panelists said. It is the safest way to move, especially large volumes of energy, whether it be gas or petroleum liquids. There's a long history of that. The statistics support it. There was a number of things. So can you just repeat the question again? I'm sorry, I got a little distracted by the sound equipment falling off the desk.
Basically, is this, in the land, is this the safest way to move this material, considering the track record of Kalamazoo and others and 30 other explosions, et cetera? How can the public trust that this is the safest way to do it?
Okay, so as I said, pipeline transportation is very safe. It's the safest way to move the petroleum that our economy runs on. We are regulated by the National Energy Board, both in terms of the fees that we can charge for the pipeline, the services that we can provide, as well as technical regulation. And so there's a well-structured set of regulations for how you build and operate a pipeline. And those are enforced by the National Energy Board. And they audit us regularly in terms of our operation. On top of that, we, as an operating company, have a number of integrity programs to make sure that the pipeline is safe. So we have tools that we run through the pipeline that can detect features, cracks, dents, things like that, and we have a program to remove those from the pipe before they can cause a problem. We also have a natural hazards program where we monitor stream crossings and other areas to make sure that they remain to be safe. And we also have a damage prevention program to make sure that people that are digging, creating any ground disturbance, are following the rules that are established around pipelines.
Can I ask a
Are you
question?
through, Michael, are you done?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Let me get one question before I let yours in, if I could. Tell me, you said it's safe. How do I know it's safe? Tell me the process, if you would. Let's say the pipeline is in, it's buried, there's nice rhododendrons growing along the 1,100 kilometers. How do I know that that pipe is safe underground? Can you describe technically what happens? I mean, you'll hear about running pigs in a minute, I think, and we'll get a description of what that means.
Yeah, sorry. One of the pipeline integrity programs I mentioned is the pipe itself, and so we have tools that we run through the pipeline, and they're kind of like big robots. They're called PIGs. It's an industry term. It's an acronym, PIG. I think it comes from Pipeline Inspection Gauge, but there's much controversy about where it really started from. The tools, there's a couple different types, and they use the same kind of technology that you get in a hospital, whether it's ultrasound or magnetic resonance imaging. It's something similar to that. It's magnetic flux. And so on those tools, there's a big magnet on the front, and as it travels through the pipeline, it causes eddy currents in the steel in the pipe. And there's sensors on the back that can detect those eddy currents and find anomalies. If there's a crack or a pit or a dent in the pipeline, they show up in terms of the anomalies in the eddy currents. And there's an onboard hard drive that records all this information. The tool has a gyroscope in it, so it knows where it is. And we can go back with meter accuracy to find the features that are identified by the tool.
Okay, you can ask yourself questions on the land portion only, the pipeline. Zipporah.
So just on the land portion, Michael, that sounds like certainly a lot of technology to address the potential for spills. Just wondering if you could speak to then what happened in Tucson, Arizona in 2003, 19,000 gallons of gasoline spilled. Portland, 2003. Marsh, California, 2004. Walnut Grove, 2004. Mojave Desert, 2004. Here in Abbotsford, 2005. Burnaby Mountain, 2007. I could go on.
We got the point.
These are all, leaks and spills that were pretty significant in Kinder Morgan's recent history. What happened to all of that fancy technology?
Well, I can't comment on all of those, that long list of incidents. I don't have the details. Kinder Morgan's a very large company. We have a North American footprint. I can't speak to Trans Mountain and its record. Our spill history for the Trans Mountain Pipeline, we've been operating for 60 years. We have published the record of spills, reportable spills on our website, and it's transmountain.com. You can go there and see that. And what you'll find is that they're predominantly smaller spills. The threshold for reporting to the NEB is 1.5 cubic meters. And there's about 72 spills over the 60 years. Predominantly events in our terminal, like the one you mentioned in Sumas. We had a leak from a tank into the secondary containment that surrounds the tank, and because of a valve that froze, a drain valve that froze, and that was cleaned up within the day. It caused some, regrettably, it caused some odors in the community and some upset in the community, and we regret that. But as I said, we had it cleaned up in a day, and of the incidents that are on that spill record, most of them are small. They're usually within our terminals where there's rotating equipment or mechanical equipment. There's a few that are on the right of way, and they've typically been the result of third-party damage. So that's people digging or working somewhere where they shouldn't, or loading soil and causing the pipeline to move.
Anything
and
else?
as I said before, we've got we learn from all of these incidents, every one of them internally. We have a review, and as part of the NEB process, there's investigations done. And the damage prevention program that we have today is a result of that.
Okay, now there's going to be another question. You might wonder whether they're all heading towards Michael because he's the only Kinder Morgan spokesman here. So he gets it. You have another question?
Am I allowed to make 2 points?
Yep.
So my 2 points are that the BC government technical assessment, the one that came out about the fair share thing, actually has a ton of incredible information. And the BC government has actually said that the spill response system on land for oil spills does not work as it should, and that companies are often unwilling or unable to respond fully and effectively. And that's actually the BC government. So that's not us people over here. That's the government acknowledging that. And I have probably a statement and a question, and it goes to the National Energy Board as the regulator and the overseer. I've already mentioned that we're actually losing some of the oversight that they provide. But quite often in these things, the devil is in the detail, as Michael is rightly noting. There's a lot you have to know. And some of the work we've done, and we've asked now twice, we've asked hard questions of the National Energy Board about some of the filing requirements that companies need to file. And what happens is major oil companies seek exemptions from these filing requirements, which, near as we can tell, and we've not had this verified, but it's a standing question for us, actually means that they don't have to submit to the government information on throughput and quantity and nature of product on these pipelines. And so for us, it's an open question. And if Michael could answer that, I'd really appreciate an answer, because we've been wondering for quite a while now.
Well, there's a lot to address there. I'm not sure where to start. You've mentioned a couple times about cuts in the federal government. I recognize that there are changes going on. With the National Energy Board, though, I can say that they're in the process of hiring more pipeline inspectors and more people for their organization. I know that that's underway. Now, your question was, can you be a bit more specific, I guess, in terms of what it is that you're looking for? I mean, we meet the requirements, the filing requirements for the National Energy Board.
In the last two approvals that you've sought from the National Energy Board, you have sought exemptions from the pipeline filing requirements, and it's Guide BB and the financial surveillance requirements. And what you're asking for, near as I can tell, by receiving that exemption, and in your firm service application you got that exemption, you do not have to provide information on throughput on the pipeline and nature of product on the pipeline. So quantity and nature of product does not need to be reported. And I don't know this. It's a question.
Sure, fair enough. So I can't speak to the regulatory issues that are in front of the board right now. The throughput on the pipeline is we move about 300,000 barrels a day. We move a range of products. We move gasoline, blending products for gasoline. We move crude oil, and we move heavy crude oil as well too. The deliveries are into Kamloops. We branch off and serve the 4 large refineries in Washington State. And we deliver gasoline and crude oil into the Lower Mainland here. The gasoline is for distribution to the local market. And we supply crude oil to the Chevron refinery, which is the only operating refinery here in BC in the Lower Mainland. And we stage barrels for loading onto ships at our Westridge loading facility. So
I've got
the type of material that we move, I mean, there's probably about on our website, on the Kinder Morgan website, there is a list of the approved products that we move in the pipeline. And the characteristics, the properties of those products are available. There's an industry website that's run that has the current properties. Someone had mentioned earlier about dilbit being corrosive. We've been moving diluted bitumen in the pipeline since 1985, and we haven't experienced any problems with moving dilbit or any integrity-related issues.
Can I ask about construction method? You build pipelines in chunks, and there are pressure valves on either side of those chunks. Pressure valves are stuff to keep the junk moving, right?
There's a pipe. There's a pipe. There's a tank to stage the material. There's a pump to pump it into the pipeline.
Yep.
There's a pipe to contain it.
How far between
it.
those pumps?
It varies. It depends on what the geography is, what the terrain is like, but it could be 40 kilometers, 50 kilometers.
And in the city of Burnaby, it could be a mile?
We don't have any pump stations in the city. The last one on our system is out in Surrey near Port Kells.
What I was trying to get a handle on is if there was an explosion or a break in a pipeline, a 30-inch, say the new 30-inch, how much stuff can come out? It all depends on where that break is relative to the pumping station or the valve, the turnoff valve.
Yeah, there's more than just the pumps. There's valves along the pipeline that can be remotely operated. There's a leak detection system, so it's running in the background. There's sensors all along the pipeline. that feed information back to a control center in Edmonton. And it's monitored 24 hours a day. And in addition to what the operators see, there's software that's running in the background that's predicting what should be happening on the pipeline. And if what it's predicting, it doesn't reflect what's happening, it gives the operator an alarm.
Okay.
And the operator has the ability to shut the pipeline, stop the pumps, and close valves to isolate the pipeline.
You'll write your questions down pertaining to land, but we'll end the land portion with Damien's question.
Yeah, well, actually, I just wanted to make one small correction. There's no such thing as a small spill. If you talk to a coho, if you could, in that stream, or a family that lives whose backyard that spill happens, it's not small. It takes only a tiny amount of oil to pollute a large quantity of water. And so the fact that we're talking about 70 spills over the lifetime of this pipeline, and now we're talking about ramping that up. It's already gone from 200,000 to 300,000 now, a brand new pipeline. This is, this term of twinning it, this is an entirely new deal we're talking about here. And it was 550,000 barrels, now it's 450,000. We're told by the analysis of Robin Allen, the former CEO of ICBC, that could be upgraded up to 1 million barrels in total between the two pipelines a day. So, you start playing those odds, and you're going to have a lot of quote-unquote small spills that aren't very small, and you're going to have some pretty big ones too eventually.
Okay, quick answer to end. Is 1 million barrels possible in the configuration you're engineering now?
Yeah, so the project that we're applying for approval for is for a system that'll provide 750,000 barrels of capacity.
Is 1 million possible?
Well, anything's possible, I suppose, and that's why, I've got to be careful with my answer. The future is a long
Is it a
time.
matter of just pumping harder and faster to get more stuff through?
Sorry?
Is it a matter of just really pumping harder and faster?
No. I mean, the configuration, so any change to the system that is approved, and if it does get built, would have to go through a subsequent approval process from the NEB. So what we're applying for today is a system that will go to 750,000 barrels a day. The NEB will judge whether that's in the interest of Canada, and if there is any modification in the future for further capacity, it would go through the same process.
Okay, we spend a lot of time on land. I'm just going to get Franz and Chris involved by moving from land to shore.